I eat food every day, but I usually don't know where it comes from or how it's made. My ancestors were farmers, but I can hardly plant anything. Whether it be from the supermarket or a restaurant, I generally have no clue about the journey my food takes from the soil to my stomach. Was it grown here in Pennsylvania or somewhere in Peru? How many gallons of gas did it take to get to me? Have fish or bacteria genes been spliced into the seeds? And has it been zapped with X-rays, E-beams, or nuclear irradiation so it can stay fresh longer? And what about the people? Did the farmers make a fair wage? What chemicals did they spray? Is it really safe to eat? Too many questions that are too hard to answer every time I pick up a fork. How did I get so disconnected from my food? When I became a father, the questions multiplied. Last year, my family decided to join a nearby community-supported farm owned by the Sisters of St. Francis of Philadelphia that sits on a plot of land adjacent to their mother house. The farm is about 10 minutes from our home in Media, Delaware County, just outside of Philadelphia. Our neighbors, Amy Johnson and Chris McNichol, are the farmers. Before the season started, we bought a share in Red Hill Farm and then received a portion of the weekly harvest. All members share in the risks of drought and disease, but also in the bounty. Part of me wanted to eat better tasting, healthier food. Mostly, I just wanted to be around the plants as they grew, bearing witness to the miracle of life. We pick up our food on Fridays. My name is Rich Hoffman. I like corn. A lot. This is my wife, Holly. She's a marvelous creature. This is our 3-year-old son, Casper. Part of the reason we joined the farm was to expose him to the growing process at a young age. We're vegetarians, mostly. I eat fish on occasion. They don't. There are no animals raised on the farm, just vegetables, herbs, and flowers, which suits us. Last year, we found that a full share was too much for our family to eat, so we split a share this year with Holly's sister's family. The storage shed has containers of food, and the chalkboard tells us what's in our share from week to week. Casper is learning to count and loves helping us assemble our share. The newsletter includes member news and recipes that make use of each week's veggies. There's a you-pick portion of each week's harvest. Often flowers or string beans, cherry tomatoes, strawberries, okra, and tomatillos, among others. Casper usually eats as he picks. Chris and Amy have a daughter, Hannah, whom Casper adores. They enjoy chasing each other about, along with the other children. We often run into friends in the shed or make new ones in the fields. Hannah is intrigued by my camera, and I let her photograph me. She's pretty good. That's Pete. He did most of the music you're listening to. I've decided to shoot with a digital still camera. The lenses available allow me to get closer to the plants, and the time-lapse functions are much more precise than my video camera. What follows is the compilation of nearly 20,000 still images. Often, I set the camera up and leave it on auto timer. Chris takes it home with him at the end of the day, as they live only a few blocks from us. Apparently, he has some fun with the camera when I'm not around. There's a purple martin colony that returns every spring to the farm. Chris encouraged them to live here by building these houses. He checks on the babies every few days to make sure that they are growing properly and don't have mites. The parents are wary of us and let us know when we've been with their children too long. Can't blame them. We take a vacation to Maine for several weeks in the heart of the growing season and stay at my family's cottage. I feel a bit guilty about missing prime time on the farm, so I turn my attention to the abundant blueberries on my parents' property. Where does the color come from? What other food is naturally blue? I study the plants and try to coax some answers out of them. I even write a song that I sing to the blueberries every morning.
1, 2.
Will you show me? Will you show me? Will you show me the mystery of your ways, blueberry? Show me the mystery of your ways.
Yeah, well, I don't learn much. The green berries seem to magically appear, or maybe I just missed the budding period. The big hybridized ones that we grow aren't as sweet as the small, darker, wild blueberries that fill the fields of our neighbor's property. But the bigger ones are easier to pick and have a nice tart quality that I rather prefer. Casper doesn't seem to have a bias as long as they are blue. We love picking them several times a day. It becomes a ritual. When we return to the farm after our trip, I'm overwhelmed by the variety of colors and shapes. What nutrients are locked away in these forms? How will they fuel the billions of tiny power plants that are the cells of my body? How do I access these riches? As I spend more time on the farm, I am struck less by what they do to encourage the plants to grow and more by what they don't do. They don't add any pest control chemicals or fertilizer. None. After all, if the bugs won't eat the plants, why should we? They do have large piles of waste vegetables and scraps from the convent that eventually break down into a rich compost. This is spread over the fields during the winter, thus returning vital nutrients to the soil so that new growth can spring forth again. The only other ingredients added are sun and water. The well they had dug provides a constant source of fresh water, but the sun and rain clouds are less predictable. It has been a brutally hot and dry summer, so some crops fare better than others. This translates for members into a ton of red and green peppers. But the hot nights make the tomato flowers fall off prematurely, and subpar tomatoes result. Next year may be the peppers' turn to take a beating. Or perhaps conditions will be suitable for all to thrive. Last year, the corn was average. This year, it's exceptional. As I photograph the corn, I fall into the majesty of its design. The strands of silk are actually individual vaginas that carry the pollen, or sperm, caught from the air directly to the rows of kernels, which are actually eggs. I'm not certain why we use different terms for plant reproductive functions, as it muddles the concepts with unnecessary jargon. I know that I would have been much more interested in 8th grade biology class if I knew that stamens and pistils were really penises and vaginas. Speaking of which, there are a number of seeds growing on the farm of the human variety. Holly and Amy both carry one each. We are excited to be pregnant together. A few years ago, when Casper was born, we had no community of friends with children. It felt a little like we were planting a single seed in a field all by itself, with only each other to protect and tend to it. As we have made friends with more like-minded parents, the rows around us have become visible, and we see that Casper is part of a line of children growing together. Being a member of the farm has strengthened these connections, and we have formed a special bond with Amy, Chris, and Hannah. Holly and I intend to serve as extended parents for their new baby, just as we hope the same from Chris, Amy, and some of our other friends. These new babies will have a small army of parents, each making sure to water when it doesn't rain and to pull the weeds around them when they need room to grow. I watch with a touch of envy as Amy and Holly's bodies swell over the summer. What must it be like to carry a baby for 9 months, feeling it squirm and kick about as it feeds on your very body? All the more reason to make sure that the food Holly is eating comes from sources that don't use poisons or genetically modified seeds. These toxins, when broken down, would become part of Holly's body, which, in turn, would become part of the baby's body. We are fortunate enough to be able to afford food that doesn't rely on pesticides. If I'm going to poison myself, I'd prefer it to be in the form of beer or wine. But I do firmly believe that access to pure food should be a basic human right granted to everyone on this planet. Just 100 years ago, it was. Perhaps when people learn of the true damage to the earth and our bodies caused by these chemicals and Frankenstein organisms, it will once again be a right of all. 25, 50, 100 years from now, I hope I live to see the day. The farm is not without its share of problems. Insect pests do exist, like this hornworm. Usually they are manageable and are sometimes taken care of by other insects. A form of parasitic wasp lays its eggs in the hornworm, and the maggots eat them from the inside out. They crawl out, spin tiny cocoons, then hatch. It's pretty disgusting. Amy and Chris plant a variety of flowers and herbs to attract beneficial insects that eat the more destructive bugs. Chris has several beehives on the farm. The bees help pollinate the plants and one day may provide honey for the members. Some smaller bugs occasionally make their way into our salads back home. It's a gentle reminder that our food is grown without pesticides. We don't eat the bugs, though I do hear they're an excellent source of protein. A much bigger problem on the farm are groundhogs and deer. Several crops this year have been wiped out by these creatures. There's an electric fence that surrounds the property, but the groundhogs just go under it, so they are handled with traps. The deer are a bit trickier. A large new housing development near the farm has forced many more deer into neighboring woods. Chris runs another line on the electric fence, which seems to slow them down a bit. I suggest getting a good hunting dog or two to take care of both the deer and the groundhogs. They have considered this, but where would the dogs live in the winter months? Maybe next year. Ideal growing conditions for vegetables also create ideal growing conditions for weeds. The type of weed growing can be a good indicator of the health of the soil and whether it needs to be supplemented with lime if it's too acidic or organic matter if it's too basic. Amy and Chris haven't yet had to add anything, which is a testament to their care for the soil, using cover crops, crop rotation, and a diverse plant population to keep it healthy. Because the farm doesn't use chemicals, weeds are usually handled by a cultivator hooked to the tractor. The intern, Rick, prefers fire, but that isn't often as practical as getting down and dirty. As I watch Rick from behind the camera, I find myself feeling ridiculous for not helping him. I don't know much, but I know how to pull weeds. I set my camera up, leave it on autopilot, and help out. When Rick has to leave the farm in late summer due to a budget shortage, I decide to volunteer more. Chris answers my questions about picking, and we laugh and joke together. I feel like I'm mining for gold as I search for prime peppers, tomatoes, lettuce, and more. My favorite are the turnips and radishes. It's like pulling teeth from the mouth of God as they gently ease out of the earth. A quiet peace and satisfaction overtakes me. Something tangible is being accomplished. I want Casper to taste the joy I'm experiencing. Chris and I clear an empty row in a greenhouse and water it. A few days later, Chris teaches Cass and I how to plant the seedlings that were started in the flats outside. Together, my baby and I place the baby lettuce lovingly into the earth. As Amy's pregnancy draws to a close, she is showered by prayers from the sisters in the convent. I join Chris for lunch in the cafeteria after a harvest morning, and I'm shocked by the number of sisters that stop Chris to let him know that he and Amy are being prayed for. I spent 8 years in a Catholic grade school and held secret aspirations of becoming a priest before I discovered art and then girls. My faith in the power of prayer had been shaken in adolescence, and I'm just now reawakening to the strength that words and intentions carry. It is remarkable to witness the belief in their own prayers that these sisters possess. Indeed, Amy's delivery on November 7th of her daughter Nora Catherine is one of joy and relative ease. Our two families return to the farm several weeks after the last official pickup day and find the butterleaf lettuce has grown to tender perfection. Casper and Hannah delight in the harvest. We delight in them and baby Nora. This has been a year of abundance for our family. We accept our gifts of food and life with gratitude and humbly await our new arrival. It's a girl.